Hola todos, how we doing? This is the home stretch. Here's our schedule here. Look at this. We are in the home stretch. You can consider this the 7th inning. This week, and this week. This is like 7th, 8th, and 9th inning. And then we have like extra innings to make sure we finish. We have a couple other things. And then we're good. Okay? So, some quick history. So, when I created this course, and through a good chunk of the last 12 years, we used to end here, co-creation of value. That was the last class, because that's kind of where my head was at. You know, this one-to-one, da-da-da-da, and co-creation of value is really the culmination of the course. Well, I decided to go, I revise this course all the time, so I've added some modules on marketing strategy. Okay? And really what I want to do is not just tie co-creation of value together. I want you to start thinking strategically about everything from here to here. So we're going to see a whole bunch of interesting articles here that most of these articles apply to all of this. Okay? Some other quick admin. As you're going to see, your professor made a boo-boo. And there were supposed to be 6 articles in our reading list this week. And somehow or another, I forgot to put these 2 in the right week. And they were actually in the following week's set of articles. Now, I need to go double check that the 18th and the 25th have all the proper articles. Many of you did not realize that these were in the following week. It was on the syllabus, but not in Blackboard. Many of you did catch it. I'm going to roll with it this week because I'm not adding more articles to other weeks. And even though these are brand new for this given year, I found these articles last year to add this year. They're good, but they're not spectacular. So, okay, we'll get to that. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is when we get done the 3 strategy modules, I have a new special video that I'm going to create. And I don't want to talk about it right now, but let's just plant that seed and keep that in the back of your mind. Alright, so let's answer some questions. First article. I don't know who this guy is. Who is this guy? Ladick? I don't know who he is. Well, when I created this course in 2004, I taught it 2004, I taught it 2005, I taught it 2006, I taught it 2007. In 2007, I was starting to integrate these ideas more. You know, I started to see some of these modules, they weren't just random, interesting modules that I'd come up with. I started to see how they would fit together. And towards the end of 2007, I came up with the idea for this article. Because the Web 2.0 was a term that was just becoming popular at the time in 07, 08, and 09. And I wanted to be timely. I thought I had something to say. So guess what? This article did not surprise you. This article was a lot of things that you saw in the leadership, you saw in co-creation of value, you saw in other parts of the semester. So I really don't need to talk about this too much, but that's where this thing came from. Let me answer some questions. If leaders must focus on the future of business and how they can be assured that today will work out if they're not focused on it, can they trust others to focus on the issues of today after all leaders are responsible for everything else goes on? Well, if you can't trust the people around you, you can't do everything. You know, if you have a corporation with 2,500 employees and you can't trust your employees to do their jobs, you're in trouble in more ways than I can describe. So, it's the leader's job to over-communicate. It's the leader's job to make sure that everyone's on the same page. It's usually not the leader's job to do. It's the leader's job to trust others to do. What are some disadvantages of community-based marketing? Well, a lot of the disadvantages are the things that we talked about in co-creation of value. It takes time. This is not something that can happen quickly. You need a community, and you have to build the community. In addition, another disadvantage is it's really difficult to make decisions without the community. And sometimes that takes time as well. Or you have to do something that the community wants, but the corporation doesn't. Because if you don't do it for the community is your bread and butter. Are there any practical ways that CMOs can shield themselves from criticism? No. CMOs do get the most criticism of all the C-suite positions. And it's just, simply put, it's the easiest Monday morning quarterbacking. The CMO and the CEO are the easiest to Monday morning quarterback with. I mean, most people don't know what the CFO does, or the CAO does, or the COO does, or the CIO does. So it's much harder to criticize those individuals if you don't know what they do. When considering web strategies, should they mirror the overall strategy, or are they dynamics that might be addressed that don't have any relation to regular marketing? Oh boy, did we just open up a can of worms with this one? Let's blow it up to 300% to maximize the screen size here. When it comes to web strategies, should they mirror the overall strategy, or are there dynamics that must be addressed that don't have any relation to regular marketing? I don't know where to start here. I don't see digital marketing any different than marketing. I really don't. And I don't see digital marketing only confined to the web. To me, this is not necessarily the web. An app is part of the internet, but it's not part of the web. So let's start there. To me, regular marketing is not something I like to do. Meaning, when we have top-down, spend your money, have no idea what I'm going to get for my money, marketing efforts, like a billboard, or a magazine ad, or most television ads, a newspaper ad. If we want to call that regular marketing, that's actually not something I've been advocating all semester. No. I only see digital marketing, and I only see return on investment type marketing decisions. If I can't track it in some way, shape, or form, I don't want to do it. There's too many excellent marketing tools that we can use that have some kind of tracking mechanism as part of them. Okay? Let's go back down to more normal size. If an organization is unready or unwilling to make the leap to the CRM era, what would be the best steps for a CMO can take to move a company forward without buy-in from the rest of the C-suite? Oh boy. Now, if the CMO has enough authority to make this decision without the rest of the C-suite, I highly recommend that he or she does what they should be doing, and the results will speak for themselves. Especially since we can do CRM-type marketing with substantially less cost than we were 10 years ago. Some of those articles, the premature da-da-da-da, or pitfalls of CRM, We don't have to spend $5 million to put CRM in our corporation anymore. We can do it for, huge Fortune 500 companies. We could do it for like $250,000. A CMO can usually sign a $250,000 check without talking to the C-suite about it. If it's what's right for the company, your customers, vis-a-vis competition, you are market-oriented, the CMO's got to make that call, regardless of whether the rest of the C-suite understands it or not. And then you use the results to educate the rest of the C-suite to why the results are what they are. In situations like the one mentioned in question 1, would they be best served by starting small and showing value, then gradually building to a full CRM, one-to-one marketing, and high-volume strategy? I think I agree with you wholeheartedly and answered that question when I talked about 1. How do you see a CMO functioning in this capacity in a B2B business? Well, regardless of whether it's B2B or B2C, I mean, in B2B businesses, you still have a community. You still have engineers. You still have suppliers. You still have other people. You still have customers that you sell to. You still want to track your marketing functions. You still want to... I don't see it that much different. I really don't. Whether your customers are B2C or B2B. Has the average tenure gone up? No. It might have dropped. Has there been able to adapt and bring their tenure length closer to that of other C-suite members? No, it is not. We're going to see in a few articles next week and in the final week that they're trying to change this title. They're messing with this title. So maybe that'll help. Giving it different responsibilities than just what the standard CMO used to be. How can a CMO improve their change management skills? Well, I can tell you for a fact that most CMOs, one of their issues is they are too much Theory X. It's their way or no way. I am the guru. I know. I've had a track record of success, whether I was lucky or not. I don't think there's enough Theory Y CMOs out there. And Theory Y is more bottom-up, more MO, more learning organization. And then, if you have a corporation with a culture of learning, a culture of external orientation, you don't have an issue with change management. With the marketing shift of power from the seller to the consumer, do you feel too much pressure is put on the CMO position? No, because the CMO gets paid gobs and gobs and gobs of cash. If you are in the C-suite of a corporation, you are responsible for your actions. Otherwise, don't take the job. We haven't seen companies succeeding in this new culture frequently. Haven't we seen that companies succeeding in this new culture frequently have more cross-functional integrated leadership? Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a CMO, CFO, CIO, but the thing is those C-suite members need to be not siloed. They need to coordinate. They need to have an external orientation. That's where the integration is. I don't have a problem with dividing up job functions. I do have a problem with every one of these C functions operating in a silo and not talking to each other, and being more worried about turf battles and who reports to the CEO first. Okay? Good. All right, what's your social media strategy? This is a 2011 article. This was really one of the first HBR strategy articles that started thinking that, oh my gosh, this social media stuff, we actually need to think strategically about it. Because so many people were caught up on the new and the novel and what it is, as opposed to why. I mean, in this video that I'm going to create for you in a couple weeks, the word strategy really should be replaced by the word why. Why are you doing it? What is your strategy? And I like this kind of thinking. What is your social media strategy? If you do not have a reason to do it, if you don't have a why that you can explain to me, then guess what? You shouldn't be messing around with insert social media variable here. If companies learn about their company's voids using social media, how can they ensure that a tweet or Facebook is authentic? Well, it's not one tweet or one post. It's usually a culmination of tweets and posts. Any one tweet is an outlier. One tweet in 10,000 is an outlier. But, 22% of 10,000 tweets all on the same theme, whether it's authentic, not, who's it coming from, there's something happening there in the community if 22% of the 10,000 tweets all revolve around this similar topic, i.e. your payment systems suck. Then you don't worry about whether it's authentic or not. You don't listen to one voice. You don't listen to one post. You listen to a theme that's cumulative. It's the social media listening. A company can utilize social listening to learn and respond to their customers. That's being said, is it impossible for a company to respond every time their brand is mentioned? It's not impossible. I don't agree with you here. When should a company respond to social discussions and when should they say no? Every tweet, when you have a social media listening tool, think about this in terms of Google. When you go into Google, you're searching for a specific thing and you put those things, you want to go to a trip to Barcelona. So you type in Barcelona train stations because you want to stay near the train station, whatever. So Google tells you where the dominant train stations are, which ones have the high-speed lines, which ones take you to which cities, da-da-da-da-da. That is a query. That's a search engine. Well, social media listening is the reverse of that process, okay? You're typing in the things that you're interested in, and when people talk about those things, those tweets or those posts get pushed to you. So anytime your brand comes up, your competitor's brand comes up, certain brand names, certain of your favorite retailers, you might have a tag cloud of 100 to 150 specific things, right? And anytime on Twitter, Facebook, and blog posts, someone talks about you or one of the other 149 keywords, that post, tweet, link gets sent to you. Every one of these should be evaluated. It could be just as simple as you are checking it off in the system and you are categorizing and accounting it. You don't necessarily have to respond. But many of these things are a question. And if you're not responding to a direct response to you and your company or your brand, when we worked with the Super Bowl, we literally had, there were times where we were processing 400 or 500 mentions an hour. There were 20 or 30 people doing it, but yeah. And of those 450, we would respond to about a dozen and a half. But everything got categorized. How do these 4 social media strategies work for a marketing campaign, or are they just more general? They're more general. This is more high level. This is, I'm on page 24. This is what you would think about, Transformer is the furthest along, i.e. you are using it and this is your main type of way of marketing. Champion is very common. The other two are more neophyte and you're working your way there. This isn't necessarily for a marketing campaign. They're more general. Not every company has the capacity to be a social media transformer. Agreed. In today's Web 2.0, what is the minimum level you need to remain relevant? Well, in today's social media world, when we're all doing something on a community type level or with a community, you really need to be relevant versus what? it's sort of like finance, okay? I'm going to look at a stock and the PE ratio is 15, okay? Well, that's great. Your PE ratio is 15, but a PE ratio in isolation is meaningless. A PE ratio, when you compare it to past history of that same corporation, where the PE ratio used to be 30, 45, 50, or 95, that gives you information. That PE ratio of 15, when you're comparing it to competitors in the same industry, well, then that's meaningful. You know, your minimum level is a comparison to who you're competing against and also your past history. So I can't tell you what that would be, but that's what I would suggest. All right. I know the author's here too. This is getting a little dated. It is 2011. This might be the last year that I run this one, but we'll see. The same might be said for this article, but if your first name is Mikotaj and you have like one of the coolest first names, I don't know if I'm going to be able to specifically pull you out of the readings. But Mikotaj, I don't know this guy, but it's a cool name. But I really like his thinking here, you know. Like on page 118, where like down here where it says, "You scratch my back." To explain successful social strategies, I find them useful to categorize them in a simple statement with 3 components that all strategies share. Successful social strategies could reduce costs or reduce willingness to pay, helping people establish or strengthening relationships, or they can do free work on companies' behalf. So he just, 2011, came up with 3 reasons, 3 whys to do social. If you can reduce costs, that's a good reason to do it. If you can increase someone's willingness to pay, that's a good reason to do it. If you can establish or strengthen relationships, that is a good reason to do it. You know, you can't just do social media. You can't just go to Twitter and start tweeting without a reason to do it. What is your goal? Is your goal CRM? That's a good reason. Is your goal branding? That's a good reason. Is your goal cost reduction? Well, guess what? Maybe social media can help with cost reduction. You know, you need a reason why. If you don't have a why, if you can't answer the why question, don't do it. Social sites like Yelp and Zynga, if the customer runs the business, then who is in control when something goes wrong? And is it a live and die with customers? Well, yes, it's a live and die with customers, and whether you're 1.0 or 2.0, you live and die with your customers. If you don't have a revenue stream, you're dead. Okay? So, this who is in control part, okay. In a more top-down world, we would care about control and conformity and process and top-down because that's the way it is. In a bottom-up world, when you have a community, if you're so wrapped up and concerned about control, you're going to have a problem. You don't have a flourishing community if you try to keep it in tight control. You got to let the community be the community. Go back to the Obama article. Did the Obama campaign have control over any of those No. They told them to do what they want to do. Gave them some tools. Do what you want to do. The control is not the tightness, the overreaching, the overlook. No, this is the Web 2.0. It's not the 1.0 world. How can social relationship websites have competitors that have more to offer? How can they outlast their competitors? So I gotta sneeze. How can social relation websites that have competitors have more to offer than the customers? How can they outlast their competitors? Well, you find out what people... That's my definition of marketing. You find out what people want and you give it to them. That's the definition of value creation. If I can give you more value and you're locked into my value, then guess what? My social network has more value than some, Facebook has more value than Google+. Pinterest has value, but its value is completely different than Twitter. Facebook and Snapchat are radically different, and you do it for different things. I mean, Facebook just bought a bunch of companies where you can draw on images and do all kinds of things like that. So most of the functionality that we see in Snapchat is going to be coming to Facebook sometime in the near future. But for right now, most of the things you do with Snapchat is different than what you would do on Facebook, by definition, because of the platform. Since each social media constantly evolves, is there a need to chase every new platform? Vaynerchuk would say yes. Vaynerchuk is the one that he calls it the attention graph. Wherever the attention is where he goes. You know, he wants to be 1, 2, 6, 12, 18, 24 months ahead of something before it completely blows up and goes mainstream. I mean, if we take a look at Snapchat, Snapchat is really it's very big now, but it's in 2015 was a huge year for Snapchat. 2016, it's probably going to go pure mainstream. We could have said this about Instagram, between, late 14, early 2015, Instagram really matured. I mean, when your aunt and your uncle are using Instagram, it's crossed over from a niche product to the masses. Snapchat still hasn't crossed over yet. It's really, really, really close. But what he does is he really chases down and experiments with these platforms while they're small, develops a pretty big position on each one of these platforms, and then when it gets big, he's there to ride the wave. I personally do not explicitly jump on platforms that quickly. I don't have the time. As much as I love this stuff, I keep telling you that I could probably be really, really happy with just LinkedIn, just Twitter, YouTube, and WordPress. I'd be really good there. Really, really good. I dabble here and there and everything else. But I mean, I had a Twitter account for a good 9, 12, 14 months before I really started using it and getting comfortable with it. I've had Snapchat since July, August of last year, and I dabble and experiment with it. I'm not active on Snapchat. I'm not there. I'm more active on Instagram, and I've been doing Instagram for about 18 months because when we started the Ask Dee show, their two main avenues of promotion were Twitter and Instagram, and Facebook too. But I wasn't really all that active on Instagram until the podcast started. So I don't know if that answered your question or not. The author says in the beginning that people don't want to connect with companies. I disagree. You and I both disagree. If companies are bringing value to the customers, providing content that interests them, for an example, why wouldn't they connect? I disagree. I disagree with the author as well. Can you provide... Okay, I just did. In your opinion, what are the social strategies when companies are not helping to establish relationships between people that are still successful? I don't know. You have to give Mikotaj some. He's had later articles. 120. You see this right here? Digital strategies, social strategies. He tried to make a distinction here. He's totally off. This is wrong. This is really wrong. Okay? No. Don't agree. It was early thinking. Gave it a good college try. It's not really what I wanted you to get out of the article. What are some of the key performance indicators used for successful social strategies, digital strategies? He didn't do a good job for social, digital. To me, everything is digital. Social is a part of digital. They're not separate. Whether we talk about something we're doing with Google AdWords, anything that we're doing that's trackable or that has ROI, I define as digital. And it just so happens we do a lot of that on social media platforms. That is my definition. That is a more evolved definition. That is 2 or 3 or 4 years ahead of where this was. Questions? Is there a limited number of unmet customer needs? Is there a limited number? No, definitely not. There's 7 billion people on this planet. There's billions of unmet customer needs. If every company's trying to meet them, how do you stay competitive? They change. Let's go back to the first class of the semester. The industry is rapidly changing. Consumer behavior constantly changes. Technology, everything. We are in the nanosecond world. Customer needs of 6 months ago, the majority of them are not relevant now. If you're not market oriented, if your company doesn't learn, if you're not externally oriented, you will be solving a customer need that by the time you solve it, that was interesting 18 months ago. That's how you stay competitive. You stay current and you stay active. Are there other values that a company can achieve through social strategies other than lowering costs? Of course there are. We've done these modules all semester. In my opinion, by far, and I've said this multiple times, the number one reason to do social or digital, in my opinion, is CRM. Next article. We have 3 articles, right? So we're going to do this guy, who happens to be a Harvard professor, Mastering the Intermediaries, which was 2014, and then in 2015, How to Launch Your Digital Platform. Whether you call it an intermediary or whether you call it a platform, he's basically talking about the same thing. The Google Play Store is a platform. It is an intermediary. Kayak is a platform intermediary. Whatever you want to call it. But man, if you have one of these things, they are powerful. Airbnb is very powerful. Uber is very powerful. The iOS App Store is very, very powerful. What is the downside for a company to allow direct purchasing through their website as opposed to going through a third-party platform and gaining fees for them? The big downside is if you're on a third-party platform like the iOS store, okay, there's only 1 billion iOS devices out there. People go to that store to buy. It might be better to collect some fees from Apple. Apple takes 30% and you get 70%. It's better to pay Apple 30% to a substantially larger audience than it is for you to get 100% from a much smaller audience. Would it be better to work on increasing company-owned visibility online or just relying on third-party traffic? It depends on what, if you have something for this system and you don't play within the system, you're crazy. But if it's not something that has a specific platform, then, I can see you trying to do it on your own. Do you see any industry that does not have a power to reduce dependency on platforms? Usually industry that has regulation, like attorneys, like real estate. But when there isn't a barrier to entry like newspapers, guess what? Woo! Woo! Are there any laws or regulatory vehicles that prevent me from promoting some companies over the other? Promoting some companies over others. This was a very good question, very interesting question. I can't think of an example off the top of my head. I can't think of... No. As long as you avoid antitrust, as long as you avoid monopolistic type of competition, then there really isn't any regulatory vehicles. What are some of the tips for smaller companies who don't have the scale of American Airlines or Yelp? Oh, wow. Well, I think the tips is how to launch your digital platform. So there were much better tips in this article. Can you please give us examples of the 4 social media strategies? Is there more success in one of the 4 social strategies over, or it depends on marketing the products? 4 social strategies? Oh, hold on one second. Let me check something real quick. I mean, you say 4 social media strategies. We're really talking about, I mean, Mikotaj had 4. I hope I didn't cut and paste this question in the wrong category, but I don't think I did. Page 95, he has the platform checklist. I mean, this is kind of where I think you're going here. Amass a large user base, offer standalone value, recruit marquee users, reduce user risks, ensure compatibility with legacy systems. I mean, they're really, for a platform intermediary kind of a thing, if you can check those 5 boxes, you're in good shape. When is the best time to ramp up a social media strategy? When you want to make money? When your competitors are light years ahead of you and you need to catch up? You know, to me, digital marketing is marketing. If your business wants to generate revenue and wants to survive, you start now. When do you find it of value to charge a customer in regards to how to launch your digital platform? When do you charge? Well, I like to use the word monetize, okay? How do you monetize? You know, many of these platforms are dependent on large numbers of sellers and buyers, okay? You need to let's go to eBay, for instance. eBay monetizes from the sellers. They get a small commission, a small fee for letting the seller list items. So what you have is you need, you know, whether you want to call it chicken and egg or not. Let's go to eBay. eBay's a platform, right? You need sellers, you need listings. Without the listings, no one's interested in coming to eBay. Those people interested in coming to eBay are buyers. Lots of buyers, lots of listings, happy community, right? You might need to start with the listings because without something to buy, you don't need the buyers. If you build the buyers first without anything to list, then... So you need to figure out the proper order of how to structure or organize your community, which is a platform. But once you do that, rinse, recycle, repeat. Okay? I really like these 2 articles. These 2 articles are staying for future years. In a bottom-up world, in a Web 2.0 world, if you're not thinking about the community and how you organize that community, preferably in a platform or an intermediary or however you want to call it, then you're probably making a mistake. Okay? Last but not least, red ocean traps. This is a pure strategy article. This has nothing to do directly with social digital. Yet, did you see that half of the examples in this article were technology products? Why? Because everything we do now are primarily technology products. On page 69, they talk about the book, The Blue Ocean Strategy. If you want to talk about the year 2000 to 2010, or even the 2015, the last 15 years, you want to talk about the top 100 books written in the last 15 years, there is no question that Blue Ocean Strategy is one of those top 100 books. You know, I could put a lot of books on that list. To me, it's an interesting book. I've skimmed it. I read the short HBR version of it, which is probably enough because many times you can just read this and the book is just a 200-page version of the same article. We've seen that so far a couple times this semester. So since this book was so popular, the authors have gone on multiple, I don't know, talking head conference, kind of. So they always get okay, I understand the blue ocean. You want to stay away from head-to-head direct competition with 800-pound gorillas. A red ocean is competition, bloody, sharks. When you see sharks, the ocean turns red. It's very bloody. Competition stop, constantly beating each other up. It's a zero-sum game. Blue ocean is the development of new markets, swimming away from the fray, going to where the ocean is not bloody. It's a blue ocean, not a red ocean. That's the metaphor. So these guys came up with this was last year, very influential. I figured you guys should read it because it was influential. So, traps. Red ocean traps. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 traps. Some of these make sense. Some of these are just okay. 6 traps. What is an example of market creating strategy that does not fall into the traps listed into the article? Well, it's usually, the recommendations that they have within each one of these. What is an example of marketing creative strategy does not fall into a red ocean trap? Well, a blue ocean, the creation of a new market, for instance, such as let's stay with Uber, okay? Uber has the convenience and cost savings to stay away from the traditional. To get a badge in New York City, to get a badge in San Francisco, there is a serious cost structure related to that. Uber created a technology platform, okay, to get away from the competitive marketplace of the yellow cab. And they went to, they probably thought it was going to be a niche strategy. Didn't end up being niche. It ended up being disruptive. Hope that answers your question. The article does not address working with executives to break out of the old mental models holding them back. Agreed. Short of working with a coach or a therapist, or a professor, are there any other simple strategies that can be employed? Well, I've answered this question hundreds of times being a professor, and even a couple of times this semester, even earlier tonight. How do you prove to someone who's over your head that he or she is stuck or risk averse or not thinking outside of the box? Or show them data. Show them success. Show them results. Let them take ownership of those results. Make it their idea, and they'll change their mind, and they'll break out of the old mental model. That's the only way to do it. Either that, or have them come to Dr. Daniel class. Uber is frequently coming up in the news because of some revolting drivers who don't like the lower prices Uber's been promoting to get more people to use the service. How will this all pan out? Well, Uber needs scale. They'll gladly sacrifice some drivers who are pissed off because more drivers are coming into the platform, and for the sake of building the platform. Is Uber greedy, or are these Uber drivers treating something that was intended to be part-time work as full-time work? There are many Uber drivers that do it full-time. It doesn't have to be part-time. You can make, I don't know how much cab drivers make, but cab drivers, if it wasn't for tips, cab drivers wouldn't get paid nothing. So Uber drivers, I don't know. This article is pretty negative about platforms and intermediaries, particularly when you're discussing fees. Perhaps. For example, the author explains restaurants pay 15% of each order to be listed on Grubhub Inc. If they're so expensive, then why do the restaurants and everybody else use them? I'll assume the value must outweigh the costs, but you can't tell that from reading this. How do I answer this question? Would you pay a 15% commission to someone if they sold a $100,000 unit? Would you pay a 15% commission? It's a good question. If you got more people, if you were able to sell $100,000 units because you were paying such a healthy commission versus only selling 2,500,000 units and paying a 3% commission. By having 100 of them move, you can reduce your manufacturing of scale, your cost structure. I mean, there are some restaurants that the only way they make money is if someone brings an order to them. Well, if they don't have the orders, then they got to pay down all the food. So we're really getting into, I'm upset with the percentage, but for the moment, if I want revenue, I'll pay it. If they're so expensive, then why does someone use it? Because if you're paying 15%, but you're only paying 15% if someone brings in you the revenue. In my head, 85% is better than 0. I think that's a good way to summarize this. Groupon comes to mind when reading this article. I have a very love-hate relationship with Groupon before I answer this question, just so you know my biases. Can businesses still make money when offering 50% in the form of a coupon? There's a lot of businesses that can make 50%. I mean, when you go into Macy's and you think you're getting a 30% or a 50% discount on that shirt, and you think, oh my God, Macy's must be getting killed here. No, they're not. No, they are not. They could probably sell it at an 80% discount and still make some margin. Okay? So don't get thrown off by percentages. Because we can do a percentages and a markup game, and we could do that thing, and retailers are notorious for that stuff. So don't go there. Just don't look at a percentage and say, oh my God. That's not 50% of their margin. That's 50% of the markup. I never really understood how Groupon was popular with businesses. Once a customer pays $35 for their food, doesn't it seem like they would likely come back if they wouldn't be too likely to come back at full price? You know, there are companies that do poor Grouponing, and they do stuff like this. But we used a Groupon on Saturday. We went to an Indian restaurant that was pretty solid. I have a neighbor around the corner whose wife is from the region of India where the owner of this Indian restaurant is from. Didn't I send my buddy a text and say, yo, you should go check this restaurant out in Collingswood because the food was pretty solid. Or at least we thought it was pretty solid. Would I go back? Sure, I'd go back. I mean, it was only $20 off the bill. So it wasn't this drastic of a discount, but there are some crazy Groupons that, yes, I would only go there if I had the Groupon. But there are other Groupons that it's a way to trial. And as long as you stage or stagger, you might do more Grouponing, not in December when everybody's going out to dinner because it's the holidays. You might do it like in the summertime when people are on vacation and you're just trying to strum up some business. Okay? I appreciate your time. I appreciate your energy. We're going to do more strategy next week. Stop.